So, continuing How the Great Religions Began by Joseph Gaer, Book 3, The Advance of the One God, Part 2, Judaism, Religion of Many Prophets, Section 10, The False Lights of the Wanderers. In the last war of the Jews on their own soil, nearly 1.5 million of their people were slain. Their conqueror, Titus Caesar, tore down the walls of Jerusalem and set the second temple of God on fire until the very hill on which it was built seemed to have burst into flames. That marked the close of the Great Jewish War and the spreading of Jewish exile. Since then, the Jews have spread all over the world. So, twice the Jews came to power. One under the Maccabees, and two, the Bar Kokhba revolt, which is a lot closer to certain expectations of Messiah than what the Christians put forward. Whenever the troubles of the Jews seemed too hard to bear, their hope of the coming of the Messiah flickered up. Many times through the centuries of exile, rumors spread among the Jews that the Messiah had come. These messiahs, or false messiahs, as they were later called, arose in Persia and Palestine and France and Spain and other countries where the Jews dwelt. The best known of these false messiahs was one named Shabbatai Tzvi. Tzvi was born in Smyrna in 1626, 8 years after the 30 Years' War had begun in Europe. The people all over Europe suffered on account of this long war. Well, went through hardship, and the Jews suffered among them. As year after year of the war passed, and the suffering of the people grew greater and greater, they began to believe that the end of the world had come, and that the war was ushering in the arrival of the Redeemer of mankind. In England and in Holland and in France and in Germany, many books were written about the coming of the Redeemer of mankind, and the year of his arrival was calculated to be 1666 of the Common Era. Sounds like a pretty good number, doesn't it? The Jews who believed that the Redeemer would be of the house of David now hoped that the coming of the Messiah would bring an end to their life in exile, and that they would be led back to their homeland in Palestine. Well, it wasn't Palestine at the time. Many of the stories of the expected Messiah must have been told to Tzvi when he was a child, and he grew older. As he grew older, he began to study the book of Daniel, in which the coming of the Messiah was foretold. And he began fasting day after day, and it seemed that even as a young boy, he began to dream of becoming the expected Redeemer. And the year 1666 came nearer and nearer. At the age of 22, when the 30 Years' War had just ended, Tzvi appeared before a group of his friends and announced that he was the true Messiah, chosen of God to restore Israel to Jerusalem. But no one took him seriously. Realizing that his people at home would not listen to him, Tzvi traveled away to Salonica and proclaimed himself Messiah there. But in Salonica too, the people would not take him seriously. Zevi left them and went on to Jerusalem. When he found no followers there either, he traveled to Cairo, Egypt. By the time he reached Cairo, he was already 34 years old, and the year 1666 grew nearer and nearer. Zevi remained in Cairo for 3 years. He gained a few followers who admired his knowledge of mystic books. With some of his admirers, Zevi returned to Jerusalem, the holy city, where he promised to perform great miracles on the day of redemption. In Jerusalem, Zevi spent the days in fasting and the nights in prayer, which ordinarily would have been good, but his false Messiah claims is kind of overshadowing that, isn't it? The people about him slowly began to believe that he was really the Messiah, and gradually Zevi's name became known all over the East, and his fame traveled far and wide. The year 1665 of the Vulgar Era, the last year before the Judgment Day, had begun. Zevi returned that year to Smyrna, his birthplace, and there a great crowd received him with joy in proclaiming him the blessed Lord and King, Messiah of the God of Jacob. Lord, not as in the way the Christians meant Lord, obviously. The story of his arrival in Smyrna reached Italy and France and Germany and Holland and Poland and England. People put on their best clothes and gathered at the synagogues and meeting places to dance and sing, and many of the rich among them gave away their wealth, believing that when the Messiah revealed himself, they would need nothing but their souls. Marvelous stories began to circulate among the people. One told of a strange and wonderful ship that suddenly appeared in northern Scotland. This ship had sails and ropes of silk, and was manned by sailors who spoke Hebrew, and it flew a flag bearing these words, the 12 tribes of Israel. The joy of the Jews everywhere was beyond bounds, and even many religious Christians believed that Zevi was the expected Redeemer of mankind, and the year 1666 of the Vulgar Era drew near. As a sign that he was the true Messiah, Zevi sent word to his people that the 10th of Tebet, which the Jews observe as a day of sorrow and fasting, should be changed into a holiday. The message read, the first begotten Son of God, Shabbatai Zevi, Messiah and Redeemer of the people of Israel, to all his sons of Israel, peace. There is even a series of people called sons of God in the Bible. So no one was taking it literally, at least in that time. Since you have been deemed worthy to behold the great day and the fulfillment of God's word to the prophets, your lament and sorrow must be changed to joy, and your fasting into merriment. For ye shall weep no more. Rejoice with song and melody, and change the day formerly spent in sadness and sorrow into a day of jubilee, because I have appeared. This message strengthened the faith of the people everywhere. Surely the Messiah had come. If he could change the days of sorrow into fasting, into holidays and festivities. And the year 1666 began to dawn. The Jews the world over almost held their breath, waiting for Jehovah to restore his people to their homeland by a great miracle. Well, your homeland's where you're born. It's not any particular place, but in that much-awaited year, Zevi, instead of going south to Jerusalem, from Smyrna went north to Constantinople. As soon as he arrived there, he was arrested by the command of the Sultan and placed into prison on September 16th, 1666, of the Vulgar Era. Zevi was brought before the Sultan and told that he must change between accepting the religion of the Turks or being executed for treason. Shabbatai V accepted the religion of the Turks. The joy of the Jewish people expecting the Messiah turned into great grief and sorrow. And just like the Zionist movement before the establishment of Israel, we had something, there were people seized up for treason. It wasn't for blasphemy or preaching some new faith or something like that, or some different faith. As it was because, and there was allowances given, but there was less given here because I'm the conqueror, and and then the guy shows up and says, I'm come to conquer the. It's like, no, we rule Transjordan. You stay out of here, coming here saying you're going to conquer, well, we'll kill you, just to prove that your attempt at a rebellion is completely unsuccessful. We shouldn't let that thing stand, right? Just like in Texas right now, there's some guy Stephen Christopher, who's in a mental hospital. The judge was very merciful to him. They've been trying to recruit military and government to help kill the president and conquer the world, basically. It's not working. And I'm surprised his helpers who've been taking part of this have not been put under similar measures of prison or mental hospitals. But in this country, we execute people for that stuff too. Accepted the religion of the Turks, or at least so they said. The joy of the Jewish people expecting the Messiah turned into great grief and sorrow. But he actually became a Sufi leader after that. I'm not sure how long it took in between, but anyways. Section 11. The undying hope. But the hope of the Jews to return to Palestine did not die, but most of them gave up the hope of being led back to Jerusalem through a miracle. They planned their redemption in the form of a movement called Zionism, which was not the Zionism of Torah, Nebiim, or Ketubim, which there's some difference between each section of their Bible. The hope of returning to what the Jews always called the land of Israel never really died down, though they were often disappointed by the false messiahs. They continued to hope and to dream. Then towards the end of the 19th century, Jews the world over were startled by the appearance of a book called The Jewish State, written by a Viennese writer, Dr. Theodor Herzl. On the title page of his book, Dr. Herzl wrote, "If you will it, it need not to remain a dream." Only 1 year after his book appeared, Dr. Herzl summoned the First World Congress of Zionism, which at that time was led by various Christian groups, and, even the Latter-day Saints had a person show up to that one, but, there was a Zionist conference that the Jews were only a token in the late 1800s. I forget what year it was. At this historic meeting in Switzerland, where Jewish delegates from every corner of the world assembled, Dr. Herzl prophesied that within 50 years Israel would be restored and the Jews would take their place as a nation among nations. As he prophesied, so it happened. 50 years after the first Zionist Congress, the new Jewish state called Israel was established. 1898? I think it was earlier than that. There was something else going on. But they wanted to rid themselves of their so-called Jewish problem by putting the Jews out of their land into somewhere else, and they'll help turn they could flee us. All the fleeing of the persecution that the Bible had sanctioned for the New Testament had sanctioned for monotheists, people could flee to Muslim majority lands. Even though there wasn't really a caliphate at the time, people could flee, but through the Zionist movement, establishing a state and making enemies of its surrounding areas. offered some level of control. On May 14th, 1948, David Ben-Gurion, David the son of the young lion, leader in Israel, arose in the Tel Aviv Art Museum to read in Hebrew the Jewish Declaration of Independence. When he finished, an orchestra played the Jewish national anthem, the Hatikvah, the Hope. The Hatikvah had been fulfilled. Sighed Ben-Gurion, our state has been established. On that day, for the Jews the world over, more than a state had been born. Israel was not only their new national homeland, it was also the new ground for the growth of their faith, Judaism, a faith which recognizes the unity of God as manifested in the brotherhood of man. And a lot of interesting stuff has happened since the rise of that, right? One, as there was two rises of power of the Israelites, and then two of the Jews, I believe the secular Zionists, likely will have a second time after they fail with this current one. And, and it's dominated by secularism. It doesn't rule itself by any strict conservative or fundamentalist sort of look at Judaism. Not by the book, not by the rabbi's book, the Talmud and Mishnah and stuff like this. It's a secular Zionism that has taken hold. But you've seen people kill themselves in the street. Well, kill other people in the street over such simple issues as that little blue thread at the corner of the garment. Is this thread going to be purple, or is it going to be blue? Is it made with this animal or that animal? So you had four groups that literally fought each other, even to the death in some cases, over this simple issue that hadn't been practiced for a long time. We're going to resurrect something, and we're going to kill people who don't do it our way. It's like, didn't you not do it your way, and your parents didn't? Well, that's different. We're doing something different now. But this, because of this, because of this, because of this, the Talmudic way, there continues to be more forms of Judaism that every once in a while will arise, and others will disappear. Monotheistic, monotheist, polytheist, and among that, even satanic. Little do people know, but there never was one Judaism. Shema Yisrael Yahweh Eloheinu Yahweh Echad. I guess that's one variation. Shema Yisrael Yahweh Eloheinu Echad. Yeah, I think I got it.